What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another video. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at the 19th April edition of Raw, as well as some of the latest news and rumors, including WWE suspending Charlotte Flair, Randy Orton injured, a fired WWE superstar rejected a return, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. As always, we aren't going to recap the matches, but just provide you with the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. As always, we start off with the good as number 1, Asuka snaps. It was great to see Asuka show some spirit last night following a title loss to Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, as well as her ongoing problem with the recently returned Charlotte Flair. The WWE's booking of the Empress of Tomorrow as a babyface has been a mixed success, as writers rely way too much on portraying Asuka as a goofball babyface, a portrayal which has hurt her character and a lot of others. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with comedic characters, but there comes a point when wrestlers focus on winning, much as Riddle does when a wrestler equates his laid-back attitude with someone who is a victim. Asuka is anything but a victim, and this portrayal was a step in the right direction. Number 2, raving over Randy vs Riddle. Last night's Orton vs Riddle match was an instant classic, as both superstars showed an incredible amount of chemistry despite their match being thrown together at the last minute. This match was beautiful in its simplicity. Indeed, it was splendidly solid affair with no distractions, screw finishes, or crap. As we reported earlier, Orton was supposed to battle Braun Strowman in their first singles match ever, but other than the novelty of their first time meeting, there's no way an Orton vs Strowman match would have had this bout's intensity and rhythm. The WWE has an instant feud here with the Viper and the Ultimate Bro with serious potential if handled well. Randy Orton responded to his loss on Twitter saying, "He's a prick and needs a good ass whooping, but also impressed me tonight. He beat me. Okay bro, let's do this. Also, happy 420 day. Yeah, Riddle's national holiday, I'm sure." Number 3, fun with the New Day. The New Day's power of positivity philosophy has become more than a gimmick, with Big E, Kingston and Xavier Woods showing that wrestlers can have fun and still be more than mid-card comedy acts. Last night's Kofi Kingston vs Elias match featured a fun spot where Xavier Woods played Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme when Kofi performed a Luthez press, a Stone Cold signature. As dull as last night's Raw was, spots like these are a good way to grab fans' attention. And number 4, MVP, the Master Manipulator. Last night's Raw further proved that MVP is an evil genius and a master manipulator, as seen by his promo regarding champion Bobby Lashley and the question of whether Mace and T-Bar are going to join the Hurt Business. Also, it's not its own entry, but thank goodness they got rid of those goofy masks for Mace and T-Bar. McIntyre was understandably suspicious about whether the 2 former Retribution members are now allied with the Hurt Business, but MVP denied everything, reminding him that Lashley makes all the decisions and he's decided to downsize the Hurt Business. However, as fans have seen over the last year, MVP knows how to push Lashley's buttons and subtly guide him, something which will likely play a role in a future storyline, but which for now has MVP manipulating Lashley and anyone who keeps the WWE Championship around the Almighty's waist. It's a masterful storyline and one of the few bright spots on Raw. But that was the good. What about the bad? As number 1, where are the Raw Tag Team Champions? AJ Styles and Big Man Almost are the new Raw Tag Team Champions, but fans haven't seen them since their big win at WrestleMania. Rumor has it that they had to shuffle the Red Brand's roster around due to COVID precautions, but by the way, we're not reporting either Styles or Almost are quarantining and or have COVID, but fans are well too aware that the WWE is inconsistent with revealing who is quarantining or who has COVID. But that being said, barring a medical reason, why wouldn't the WWE have the new champions on television? Number 2, Mason T-Bar's pathetic promo. If the WWE wants to get Mace and T-Bar over as more than those guys who are in Retribution, they're gonna have to write better promos for the menacing men. While wrestlers sometimes falter in delivering promos, both men had to be asking themselves, who the hell wrote this shit when they were talking about extinct saber-toothed tigers? Number 3, doubling down on disqualifications. Disqualification finishes are a sore subject with wrestling fans, as they can lead to cheap conclusions that can ruin an otherwise entertaining match. However, there are times when disqualifications actually help, building things up for a rematch down the road. But last night's use of the back-to-back disqualifications was lazy booking for both the handicap match between McIntyre and the team of T-Bar and Mace, as well as the following Braun Strowman Drew McIntyre vs T-Bar and Mace match. This was incredibly lazy booking and a waste of time for both fans and for superstars working the match. Number 4, Rematch Raw. Speaking of lazy booking, have they returned to Raw Roulette where the Red Brand's matches are randomly written? Highly unlikely given the number of Raw rematches the WWE Universe had to endure last night. Watching the Viking Raiders return last week to defeat Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin was palatable, but there was no reason for a rematch last night unless Vinnie Mac wanted to bury the former Hurt Business members further. Likewise, how many times do fans need to see Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax wrestle Naomi and Lana? Throw in The Miz versus Damian Priest, and somehow fans might have mistaken this week's show for last week's Raw. Number 5. Burying Baszler. Watching Shayna Baszler take another pinfall last night was a revolting reminder of how far the Queen of Spades has fallen since joining the main roster. The badass who dominated and destroyed 5 women at 2020's Elimination Chamber is now the go-to girl whenever one of the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions needs to take a pin. The very idea of Nia Jax being booked better than Baszler is enough to make any WWE fan puke. And the Queen of Corn. Now we're happy to report we've trademarked the Queen of Corn to describe Alexa Bliss's new gimmick that focuses so much on her Lily doll. The idea of Bliss taking the otherworldly powers the Fiend bestowed on her and making them into her own is an intriguing storyline, but in typical Raw fashion, they cheesed it out by adding the goofball gimmick involving the Lily doll. Last night's photoshopped images of young Bliss with Lily were beyond corny, and unless they want to turn things around quickly, this won't just end Bliss's new storyline, but it could irreparably harm the Fiend. There was nothing ugly about last night's show, but what is going on with Raw? Rumour has it that Vince McMahon made his usual last-minute changes, which clearly muddled the show. Granted, changing Orton vs Strowman to Randy Orton vs Riddle worked out well, but the rest of the show made little sense. Raw is becoming a struggle to get through, not so much because it's 3 hours, although it doesn't help, but because it's 3 hours of garbage. What did you guys think of Raw last night? Let us know in the comments down below. Now, let's move on to the news. Now, first story looks at Randy Orton injured. The details are still limited, but there's a story developing concerning a possible injury to Randy Orton during his match against Matt Riddle. During the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez noted that it appeared that the Legend Killer may have injured himself. I don't know the extent of what happened, but Randy Orton hurt his shoulder. He was fighting out of the corner and Riddle went to give him an exploder. Randy didn't take an exploder, he blocked it and pulled back and did this very dramatic punch. And he punched him, and then from that point forward he could no longer use his right arm. He was throwing forearms with his left arm. It looked horrible. It was like that one day when he punched the mat and his shoulder went out. Hopefully we'll get an update on how serious the condition is. Next up, Charlotte Flair suspended. It looks like Charlotte Flair's recent return will be on hold, as the WWE has announced that the Queen is suspended following her attack on WWE referee after a loss to Asuka in Raw's main event. They issued the following. During the 19th April edition of Raw Talk, WWE official Adam Pearce broke the news that Charlotte Flair has been indefinitely suspended and fined $100,000 for her unprofessional conduct on Monday Night Raw, as well as physically abusing an official. She is currently being escorted from the building. Now, there's no word on whether Flair's storyline suspension has to do with her emerging acting career, or if this is part of WWE building up what could be a 3-way rivalry between Flair, Raw Women's Champion Rhea Ripley, and Asuka. Next up, WWE edits spots from WrestleMania 37. Fans watching WrestleMania 37 on Peacock won't get the same show as fans who watch the show live. According to a report from Ringside News, they cut a major portion and minor portion from the show. Night 1 was postponed due to severe weather, leading to them having superstars cut several impromptu promos before the show. This entire portion was cut out, as was Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke's entrance during the women's tag team turmoil match where Rose fell on her behind. How they can casually cut a WrestleMania moment like Mandy's mishap is mind-boggling, especially after they've done a whole storyline out of it. Next up, a fired superstar rejected a WWE offer to return. Heath Slater's got kids, so why would he turn down a chance to return to the WWE after his 2020 release? The former 3MB member answered that question when he spoke with Kurt Angle on the Angle podcast. They offered me one back, but it was like half of what I was making. I was like, nah, I need to find myself and do other things and just chill. Just breathe and relax and spend time with my family. Just chill. Slater noted that he's still in talks with many people in the WWE and that the company understood his reason for turning down a return. But the WWE wasn't the only promotion interested in him. I talked to Impact, New Japan and Ring of Honor. I talked with AEW after I went to Impact. They just wanted me to come in for a 3-week thing to do some things. I was already committed with Impact. A WWE return is always possible, but Slater seems to be happy where he is. And finally, Jericho's open invite to recently released WWE Superstar. Last but not least, recently released WWE Superstar Tucker tweeted about being future endeavored. Can't wait to tell this story. Chris Jericho quickly responded, "Open invite." Fans will recall Jericho's incredible interview with Jon Moxley after he left the WWE, and while Tucker isn't a main eventer, his side of the story could be very interesting. But there you have it folks, the wildest wrestling news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.